The Galactic Academy's xenobiology classroom fell silent as the towering Rextal stalked through the doorway. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with obsidian black chitinous armor and mandibles that could snap a steel rod in half, Zekthar was the apex predator of his species. A being evolved from creatures that had hunted across the volcanic death worlds of the Rex system for millions of years. His yellow eyes, each the size of a human fist, swept across the diverse collection of students from 17 different species. Most cowered instinctively. The crystalline Silmari chimed nervously, their bodies flickering with stress patterns. The gaseous Nethvo contracted into tighter formations. Even the usually confident Zephyrian delegates pulled their feathered crests low. All except one. In the third row sat a small pink-skinned creature that barely reached Zekthar's knee in height. The human, Sarah Chen according to the roster, looked up from her datapad with curious brown eyes and offered what appeared to be a friendly expression, baring her teeth in the bizarre human gesture called a smile. Zekthar's hunting instincts immediately focused on her. Here was prey that didn't know its place. You, his voice rumbled like grinding stone, pointing a clawed appendage at Sarah. Human, stand. Sarah glanced around the classroom, noting the terrified expressions of her classmates, then calmly set down her stylus and rose to her feet. At 1.6 meters, she looked absurdly small before the massive predator. "Yes, Professor Zekthar?" she said pleasantly. The Vrextal had expected stammering, perhaps the release of fear pheromones that made hunting so satisfying on his homeworld. Instead, he detected something that confused his predatory brain. The human showed no fear markers whatsoever. Her heart rate was steady, her breathing calm, her posture relaxed. "Tell the class," Zekthar leaned forward, allowing his full intimidating presence to loom over her, "what you know about apex predators." Sarah tilted her head thoughtfully, seemingly oblivious to the fact that she was being menaced by a creature that could literally eat her. Well, apex predators are fascinating. They're typically large, powerful hunters that sit at the top of their food chain. They've evolved specialized hunting adaptations, enhanced senses, powerful physical capabilities, sophisticated neural pathways for tracking prey. Zekthar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. At least the tiny creature understood her place in the natural order. However, Sarah continued cheerfully, apex predators often develop significant behavioral limitations that can be quite exploitable. The clicking stopped. Exploitable? Oh yes, Sarah said, warming to her topic as if she were discussing the weather. You see, apex predators typically evolve in environments where they face little to no threat. This leads to overconfidence, predictable attack patterns, and a dangerous assumption that size and strength automatically equal dominance. A ripple of shocked silence passed through the classroom. Several students actually fainted. Zekthar's hunting instincts were now completely confused. This should have been simple. Establish dominance, watch prey cower, enjoy the satisfaction of being at the top of the food chain. Instead, the human was lecturing him. Furthermore, Sarah continued with academic enthusiasm, apex predators often develop tunnel vision focused on traditional prey responses. They become so accustomed to fear-based reactions that they completely miss other types of threats. Other types? Zekthar growled, his pride stinging. Well, humans, for instance, Sarah said with that same sunny smile. We're not apex predators in the traditional sense. We're persistence hunters, pack hunters. We're the species that looked at apex predators on our world and said, "That looks tasty. Let's figure out how to eat it." Zekthar's confidence wavered slightly. Humans are clearly prey animals. Small, weak, no natural weapons. Oh, we're definitely prey animals, Sarah agreed cheerfully. To lots of things. Bears, tigers, sharks, tyrannosaurs rex when they were around. But here's the thing about being prey, it makes you incredibly creative. She pulled out her datapad and flicked through some images. This is a mammoth. Massive, powerful, perfectly adapted to their environment. This is a cave bear. 3 meters tall, claws like sabers. This is a saber-toothed cat. And this is what we call extinct. The images showed artist renditions of massive, intimidating creatures, followed by museum displays of their bones. You see, Professor, Sarah said with the patience of someone explaining something to a particularly slow child, when you're not the biggest or strongest, you get really good at being smart. We learned to make tools, coordinate attacks, use terrain advantages. We learned that apex predators have a fatal weakness. Which is? Zekthar found himself asking despite his growing unease. Sarah's smile widened, and for the first time, her expression carried something that made Zekthar's evolutionary hindbrain suddenly scream warnings. They think being apex means being safe. She tapped her datapad again. Humans have a saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It doesn't matter how big or scary something is. Everything has vulnerabilities. Everything can be studied, understood, and overcome. Zekthar was beginning to realize that he had made a serious miscalculation. The human wasn't showing submission or fear because she genuinely didn't see him as a threat. She was analyzing him like a problem to be solved. On Earth, Sarah continued conversationally, when apex predators started hunting humans, we didn't try to become bigger apex predators. We became something much worse. We became the thing that apex predators have nightmares about. Intelligent, coordinated, and absolutely relentless prey that refuses to stay prey. She gestured around the classroom. Look around, Professor. Every species here represents millions of years of evolution. But which species built the ships that brought us all here? Which species developed the technology that allows us to communicate across language barriers? Which species looked at the vast, hostile emptiness of space and said, that looks like a fun challenge? The classroom was dead silent except for the quiet humming of the life support systems. Sarah's expression remained perfectly friendly. So while I appreciate the traditional dominance display, Professor, I hope you understand why it doesn't really work on humans. We're the species that turned apex predators into house pets and teaching tools. We don't fear the top of the food chain. We study it, understand it, and then we domesticate it. Zekthar found himself taking an involuntary step backward. For the first time in his life, his predatory instincts were screaming at him to retreat from something much smaller than himself. Now, Sarah said, settling back into her seat with perfect composure, shall we continue with today's lesson on comparative evolutionary adaptations? I find interspecies behavioral dynamics absolutely fascinating. The great predator stood frozen for a moment, suddenly understanding that he had just encountered something far more dangerous than any apex predator. A species that had evolved beyond the need to be apex, becoming something that made the very concept obsolete. Slowly, carefully, Zekthar returned to his teaching position, making a mental note to never again mistake human friendliness for weakness. After all, as Sarah had so cheerfully demonstrated, the most dangerous predator was often the one that didn't look like a predator at all.